There's an important deadline coming up at the end of this week, in fact, on Sunday, the 31st of January 2021. It is the self-assessment deadline for tax. And at the best of times, we have this horrible habit of leaving things to the last minute when it comes to our tax returns. But of course, this year, we've got the pandemic as well, and we've got to consider the impacts of the pandemic on completing our tax return on time, on paying the tax that's due. I caught up with Pauline Green from QuickBooks, who shares some thoughts and ideas about making sure you get your self-assessment in on time, getting that payment made, and also being a bit mindful about your tax. So here's my conversation with Pauline. So Pauline, welcome to Informed Choice Radio. Perhaps you could start by introducing yourself then. So tell us a bit about you and what it is you do.
Yeah, sure. I'm head of product compliance at Intuit QuickBooks, and my team and I take government legislation and then work with our development teams, the engineers and designers, and we produce easy-to-use software for our customers.
Fantastic. And you're clearly a tech company in a sense. I can see the background of your office in London with the advanced robot, I think, on the screen behind you. So this is a software-led business we're talking about, but with
Absolutely.
tax and accounting as part of it too.
Absolutely. So QuickBooks is a financial software management tool. So we help you with your VAT returns, your income tax self-assessment, payroll, all those kind of things, as well as managing your money in and outs and cash flow.
Fantastic. And we're talking today about a quite important deadline that's coming up. It's coming up on us quickly, in fact. It's on Sunday, the 31st of January 2021. Tell us about this deadline. What is it? Why is it so important?
So it's important because it's the tax return due for self-assessment people, sole traders, for last tax year, so the 5th of April 2019, and they have until the 31st of January to get that return in to HMRC. So it's an online digital portal.
Absolutely. And as well as making the tax return, there's a payment we have to make as well if we're subject to the self-assessment regime. I know I've got a rather nasty one coming up myself at the end of the week. So what's that payment?
So the payment, so you actually have two payments. You have a payment on account, which is around the July timeframe, and then the sort of true up. So you pay the rest of the balance this January. So you finalise your tax return, and that tells you exactly how much you owe, and you hopefully have paid some on account, and then you've got the balance to pay. What we're finding this year, and we've done some research, is that obviously people have not paid that payment on account because of the COVID situation. People were allowed to defer it, which they have taken the opportunity to do. And so what's now happening is they've in effect got to pay both tax payments in one go.
Oh gosh, so a real double whammy coming up for some people.
Exactly, yeah.
What's the general impacts of COVID been then? So Pauline, you mentioned there the ability to defer a payment from last summer, and that was part of, I guess, the government package of financial support. So what were people allowed to do?
So they're allowed to defer it. I mean, the other thing was for self-employed, there was the self-employed income scheme grant, which actually is for this tax year that we're in at the moment. So the income would be recorded then. So there was a lot of different ones. I think what's happened is obviously people's not so score on their income. There's been an impact there. They have deferred their payment. So it's all about cash flow, isn't it? A lot of small businesses and even sole traders don't fail because they're not successful in or profitable. It's about cash flow, isn't it? And the cash flow here, I think, is taking a massive hit.
Yeah, very much so. So pandemic aside, what I often hear from people at this time of year is there's a mad scramble, a mad rush to get this self-assessment done in time. Why are we so bad at this? Why do we leave it to the last minute?
Well, I think there's a few reasons, isn't there? I mean, we actually did some research with another company called Self-Serve, and we found that I think it's something like 42% actually get their tax return wrong or misjudge it, what they actually owed. And I think, if you've been hit by that before, then you're more reluctant to actually do it again. The other thing is, of course, once you've done it, as you say, you've got to pay it. You've got to pay over the money, so you want to put that off as long as you can. And I think it's just about that dread of actually doing it. And I think it builds up, doesn't it? The more you think, oh, I've got to do this, the worse it gets. And I think again with this year, the fact that you think, oh, I might have to pay two lots of money over, that increases the dread. That I would almost argue, get your assessment in early, because actually the money can follow later. It's about getting in there and knowing what you actually owe HMRC now.
So don't bury your head in the sand and think, if I ignore this, it will all go away. That deadline is a deadline, isn't it? It's fixed. There's no ifs, there's no buts, there's no maybes. You have to have it done by that date.
The one thing I will say, again, to encourage you to actually hit that deadline this year in particular, because HMRC are obviously aware of the pandemic and that. And if you are struggling to make those payments, as long as you've got your return in by the 31st of January, then you can set up a payment plan again online with HMRC, and you can spread that over 12 months. So again, don't bury your head in the sand because you think, oh, I can't make the payment. Just get it done, easily said. Get your return done by the 31st, and then you can work out the payment plan. So again, try and face what you've got to do, take control and be proactive, and hopefully then you can spread that payment. There are some caveats, like you can't owe money elsewhere, to HMRC and that kind of thing, but you have to have had your return in on the 31st, otherwise you don't get that option.
That's a really important point, isn't it? I think too many people put off the return because they assume if they do return, they owe the money. You owe the money anyway. The return's relevant from that sense, but it gives you that certainty about how much you owe. And as you say, it gives you access then to a bit more flexibility from the HMRC. And they're not known to be generous to taxman, are they? So that's a positive bit of flexibility.
I think their job is to collect the taxes, isn't it? And if they didn't collect the taxes, then government wouldn't be able to do other things and give money to other causes. So that's part of their remit to do it. But I think within reason they try and work with you. And again, it's about being in control. If you are due, and you're struggling, take ownership of that.
Yeah.
And then try and work out that thing. And one of the things we did with Selfspace was we produced a mindful tax guide to help you prepare your tax return. So to help you get in the right frame of mind to actually do it, and some good, tips like, drink plenty of water, have a good night's sleep, and then to do it that way. So, if you are struggling, get some tips there from the mindful tax return as well.
That's really important. Probably something we don't think about or talk about enough, but particularly at the moment when I think we're all a little bit stressed and on edge because of what's going on in the world around us. But if you're in the wrong state of mind to sit down and do something which is quite detailed work and requires a great deal of concentration, then you're more likely to make mistakes. You're less likely to actually get it done in time. So that's I like that approach. That makes a lot of sense. It maybe sounds a bit flippant to say get in the right mindset, but actually very important.
Absolutely. And then, to help you for next year, start using something like QuickBooks, get on top of your taxes now, and, get all your information up to date now. And we do a tax assessment as well, so you can see how much you earn for this tax year as well.
Good. Okay. So tell us a bit more about QuickBooks, about the software, about how it works. So I use a different piece of software, I'm sorry to say, for my business rather than my self-assessments. My accountant does my self-assessment for me, but it's about record keeping, isn't it? It's about putting all of your entries in, categorizing them properly. How does that work with QuickBooks?
Yeah, so QuickBooks is a financial management tool, and we also work with accountants as well. So you can attach your bank feeds, so you can get up-to-date information about your money going in and out of your bank account. You can categorize the money coming in. So, a lot of sole traders may only have one bank account, so they could say, no, this is personal. Don't want it recorded as in my books. You can do that. You can categorize it, so automatically if there's a standing order, you can say, well, this is rent for a property. It'll go to that every time. It sees it on your bank file, so you don't actually have to touch it then. We also do like receipt capture, so again you can do a receipt, picture it, takes all the information, records it, and say it's like Smith's, I brought some stationery. Next time you do one for Smith's, it say, oh, is this stationery? And it does it automatically. You can change it if you want. If it's something different, you can make the changes. You can do your invoicing. Obviously, it helps you with your cash flow, so you know exactly where you are with that cash situation. And as I say, there is an income tax self-assessment in there as well. If you're registered for VAT, you can do your MTD for VAT. If you've got construction industry, we've got that supported. So, and if you do payroll, we do payroll as well. So anything you want, and you can do it all yourself if you're a small business or trader, or you can do part of it and work with your accountant who can also have access to your book. So fully flexible from I want to do it all myself to I'll just put the receipts there and let the accountant sort everything else out.
And there's a couple of bits in there which I think are wonderful and probably have come on leaps and bounds in recent years. One is this bank feed. So the advent of open banking and this ability to take banking data is just wonderful. And then the other bit is this scanning receipts.
Yeah.
Well, I only discovered, I think about a year ago, I could do that, and also I can scan checks and pay them into my online bank account, which was incredible. But tech is really driving this now, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely, and you know, again, we were talking about bury your head in the sand. You hear the old stories. I think they probably still happen of, you know, shoebox full of receipts, handed over to the accountant. You know, get my return done by tomorrow, kind of thing. Here, you can do it as you go. You know, you can take those pictures. It's there. You can, as an individual, say, oh, this is where I think that needs to go. Your accountant can look at it and say, no, you've done it, needs to go here, or yeah, that's fine, whatever. And then, you know, if you are working with an accountant, they can maybe become more of a business advisor, you know, and sort of talk about how maybe to structure your business, or how you want to grow it, or, you know, where to invest, or things like that. So, you know, I think again, it's about being in control, isn't it, of that money, and knowing what's coming in and out, having that cash flow projection over the next couple of months. You know, sole traders, I know a lot that they work for maybe 3-4 months, then they take a couple of months off. Maybe not so much in the last year, but you know, that they're, you know, it's more about having that flexibility. Well, again, you can have your money, you know exactly where you are, and you could like, well, actually, I can afford to take a month off, and I still know I'll be all right. I still know I've got the money to one side from the income tax that I'm due to pay, and then I can take that month off and then come back and restart up again. So, you know, I think it's there as a tool, isn't it, to help you, and again, be in control of your money and your life and your finances.
Yeah, well, certainly anything that puts us in better control of our money, we're a big fan of here at Informed Choice, and yeah, it's a really positive thing. Nothing worse than burying your head in the sand, or, you know, allowing these sort of life admin tasks to get so far behind that they feel like it's a crushing pressure.
And I think, you know, the more you leave it, the worse it feels, doesn't it? Whereas if you can, you know, be on top of it, it's, if you know, having that control, I think, is, especially with the pandemic, I think, you know, you need some control in your life, don't you? You need some, you know, being able to, I can do this, you know, because there's so much that we can't control.
Yeah, and it's so satisfying to tick things off your list if you have it. And I think it's a brain chemical called dopamine, which gets released every time we achieve something like that and make a mini win. So yeah, if getting your tax return done on time by the end of this week is a mini win, it releases a bit of dopamine, it makes you feel happier, then that's got to be a good result.
And the other thing that we've put in the mindful tax return is about celebrating. So actually, you're looking back to, you know, a good year, 18 months ago, pre-pandemic, and it was like, oh, remember that, you know, gives you that extra boost again. Oh, that was a great job that I did, you know, and take pleasure from what you've done, and then hopefully you can carry that forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember that will come back at some point in the future. You know, we will get back toward normal times, more normal times at some point, and the sort of figures you saw in your tax return from a year and a half ago, hopefully will be repeated.
We'll come back. Yes.
Pauline, thank you so much for joining us today. Before I let you go, where can we find out more about the software, about the business?
Right, find that mindful tax return, go to quickbooks.co.uk/mindful tax, and that'll give you plenty of help. That was done with selfspace.com. And if you want some help on your actual tax return, if you're having questions beyond that, have a look at the Gov UK website for plenty of help, including your payment plan. And if you just want to look at QuickBooks, then go to quickbooks.co.uk.
Wonderful. I'll make sure I put links in our show notes in the description for this conversation as well, so our listeners and our viewers can find that nice and easily. But Pauline, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Brilliant.